Con Stathopoulos and Josh Phegan come together in an incredible podcast, Grow, Scale, Master.
An energetic approach to drive progress, master skills, build strengths and put the strategy back into rapid business and personal success.
Backed by real-world experience in rapid scaling to playing the long-term game of business, it's the story of all the lessons learned on the journey to mastery.
Be inspired, renew your energy and chase the future with Grow, Scale, Master.
Con, it's time for a bit of a revolution, and today we're going to talk about smartening up the broken systems inside of your business.
Ooh.
Mate, I got to tell you, how many times do you look inside of your business and go, that just doesn't work anymore?
Every day, Josh.
I'm not talking about the whole thing.
No, but seriously,
Yes.
it's a daily thing.
Yes.
Because systems and processes, checklists and whatnot, they need to adapt and evolve. But
Yeah.
You know what normally happens is when you find the fault, that's when you go, the system's broken.
Yeah. And the interesting conversation is that when you go to think about that, like, what is a broken system? So let's think about what systems thinking was all about.
Yeah.
And, I was very lucky. My dad put me through ISO 9001, which was about certification with the 5 red ticks.
Quality
You might have seen
assurance.
that. Yeah, quality assurance.
Yeah.
You would have seen that on the back of helmets and stuff.
Yep.
And in long story short, when you think about what a system was, it was a replicable way of doing something that would minimize variation and absolutely ensure consistency in delivery of service expectation.
Yes.
So like, okay, what does that mean? Well, like literally if you do it the same way over and over and over again, then you ultimately get a better result. But if you do it differently each time, then you get a very different result.
Yeah.
And so the basic idea is that there's an old school quote that, to the amateur, there are lots of options, but to professional, there are only a few. So like literally, when I go out, I don't know, if I play tennis or something as an example, I've got like 50 different ways I might try making that serve, but the professional has like a 16-step process to actually get to that outcome, right?
Yes.
And so when you start thinking about, okay, great, what is a broken system? It's like literally we used to do this really well, and now all of a sudden we just don't do it well anymore because someone just forgot to read the checklist or doesn't send it out anymore, or that was something that was kind of important at the time but was let go.
Yeah.
And so what we also find too is that broken systems, that maybe the technology has replaced how we used to do it manually, but maybe the technology doesn't do it as well as we do it.
Correct.
And that's kind of an interesting thing, is that like, when we have a look at that, like it's really, really important, to absolutely make sure that you're understanding, okay, what's actually broken. So working with Carly, my team, I'm very lucky that, we get to have these things inside of our business, and we have this little thing called a broken systems meeting. So we just go, okay, great, what's broken right now? And we just write out a list of everything that's broken. And we actually decide, okay, great, and which one of these are actually really worthwhile, fixing. And where do we continually have the same sorts of issues coming up over and over again, where we just need to reimagine the system because it just doesn't work for that anymore?
Yes.
And so, broken systems, I think, is a really nice way to kind of think that, like, any time that you're not getting what you want, or any time that you're experiencing a difference in the level of the service, then that's actually it. So when I say to someone, hey, what are the challenges you've got right now? Whatever they say to me, in my brain, I think is a broken system.
Do you ever in your own business right now test to see if you can break the system?
Oh yeah, like that's really easy to do.
Right.
Like I'm going to say, back in the COVID era when we did Blueprint fully virtual and there was no live in-room experience, we learned about some broken systems that day where, 550 people tried to log in all within the same 6-minute window.
Ah, yeah, right, gotcha.
And do you know the number of people that didn't know which email address they bought the event from?
Right.
So did you buy it from Con at McGrath or Con personaltime@gmail.com, right?
Yeah.
And so it's a random email address.
Right. That's not my email address, guys.
Okay. But just starting to think a little bit about that.
I get it. But so okay, cool. That makes total sense.
And so the whole conversation is that literally it's about like pressure testing. So
yes,
if you think about it as an agent, like, maybe you can do 5 or 6 or arguably 7 open for inspections on a Saturday, but you go to 8, you're going to be broken.
Yeah.
Because like you won't get back to people, things aren't going to happen, things start feeling, falling off the wheel.
Yeah.
So what you got to realize that's a capacity limiter. So the only way to fix that is to either do less opens, or one of my agents, for example, in Lane Cove, does 20-minute open for inspections on apartments so we can do more.
Gotcha.
Or you move into a position that you add an extra person inside of your team that can do more, or you use some other sort of overflow mechanism of additional salespeople. So I think that this is about like smartening up, is saying, hey, is there a better way?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to go through a couple of broken systems and get your feedback on it.
Done.
And I reckon that the biggest broken system inside of residential real estate is past clients. The reason
what do you mean by that?
So the reason I think about past clients as being broken is that last time I checked, businesses that do really well have repeat customers, and last time I checked, businesses that do really well know how to improve the lifetime value of a customer.
Yes.
Now, the databases don't track that in residential real estate. So you can't go and find people that have done multiple transactions, find people that have paid me the most amount in GCI, find me the most people that have paid the most number of transactions in property management, who's actually paid me the most fees for property management services.
Yes.
So if we were serious about it, we'd have a metric around it. So that's the first foundational conversation.
I completely agree with you. So that past clients, it's not. Think about when you sell.
I haven't finished about how broken it is.
Sorry, Josh. Sorry.
Okay.
My apologies.
So now let's go another way.
This sounds like it's a broken system.
Okay, right. So now think about this. So what we were kind of designed or taught, through the different eras of real estate training, was that every single time that you get a past client, what you actually now go and do is you go and set some sort of task or activity plan or something around that particular person. So every year for the next 15 years, we're supposed to ring that person on the day.
Yes.
And everyone was like contentious. Is it the day they bought it? Is it the day they settled? Like, is the date of the auction? Was it the day that the deposit was? So we're getting confused. And then what ends up happening is that goes into some sort of task-based system. Now, all of a sudden, people would then turn up in that task-based system, but it wasn't just past client calls that were there. It was like random buyers. You were looking for 900 and a buyer was looking for 2.5 and a market appraisal from 6 years ago. And like all of these other tasks were in there. When it's broken because it's not the way that actually humans actually function. And so we know the best call day, for example, is a Monday because you're just doing the same open home callback all day.
Yeah.
So basically think about this. When do you need a past client system? When you've got one past client. And how you serve one is how you're going to serve 1,000.
Yes.
So think about this, that if you went with that mechanism of one task per past client.
Yes.
Good when you got one. Now put 1,000 clients in the system.
Yeah, what's the one-to-many approach?
So now you've actually got 1,000 individual tasks you need to tick off inside of the CRM.
Yeah.
Now, the interesting thing, if you're tracking activity, that's fine, but it actually doesn't work. So now I'm going to take you back to an old school system, 1973 playbook. It's been around for a while. You've heard me talk about it before. But literally this guy goes down to a news agency, buys a book, January, February, March, you name it. We're in May right now. Literally he gets to the May one, opens it up, and there's a list of everyone who's ever bought from him in May and anyone who's ever sold with him in May, and he rings a lot in one call session.
Yeah.
So, hey, Con, it's Josh. You bought your home a year ago. How are things with you guys? How's the house? You're due for an annual checkup. Would you like me to pop out, give you an idea on what it's worth?
Yeah.
So what I think is that the current system of like we're supposed to go and call these people with like 1 million tasks doesn't actually work. But instead I want one task, which is on the first Friday of every month.
Is my past client anniversary calls.
And then we just do that all day on that day.
Yeah, that's
so we call it Back to the Future Day.
Yeah.
And so, right? So then we go and do it. And if we were super smart about the automations, like the CRM systems or even the portals would actually automate that and say, imagine this, like literally if a portal came to you and said, hey, Con, these are all the properties that you've sold in your career over the course of the last 10 years at McGrath. And it just gave you like with a link to the photos of every single property.
Yeah.
Press this button and we'll automatically email or SMS the vendor and say, hey, congratulations, you bought your house 10 years ago from Con. Press here if you'd like to request a free appraisal.
Just for realestate.com.au.
Or domain.
That are listening to this, terms and conditions apply.
Yes,
that's now patented. Yeah. But you're right. I get it.
So that's past clients.
Yeah.
Okay. Secondary conversation.
Yeah.
So do you agree? What do you think? Is that a better way to fix that?
Categorically, I've got a friend of mine in Melbourne that does this. Every time he sells a property for the buyer and seller, he has a shoebox and he's got a thank you card.
Yeah.
And I should say it's an anniversary card.
Yes.
So as he's writing out his thank you cards, he writes out next year's anniversary cards and he puts that into the shoebox.
Yes.
I'm kidding you not, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And then he has that posted automatically.
Yes.
And that reminds him that when he writes that for Josh, he then does it for the next year.
Yes.
So yes, I totally agree with that.
Okay. So now I'm going to put you into a situation. This is a game of choice, Con.
Oh, gosh.
Okay, here we go.
Come on, mate.
So there are two different appraisals you can go to. The first appraisal is actually someone who's got a job relocation. And the second appraisal is someone who's downsizing who could be selling today or sometime in the next 25 years. Which of the two listing presentations, and you can only choose one, are you going to? Are you going to the job relocation or are you going to the downsizer?
Can I phone a friend?
No.
Can I have some thinking music time?
Yeah.
I'm going to the job relocation, mate, because there's urgency there.
Okay, so what you've just told me is that problem type determines the urgency of the seller.
Categorically right.
So why is there not a CRM in the world yet that categorizes problem type market appraisals based on problem type?
Good question.
So if you're thinking job relocation, having a baby, divorce, deceased estate,
financial stress, whatever,
pressure, someone who's going through any of those things, nursing home, unfortunate, versus downsizer, CO2 change. No, investor's urgent.
Yeah.
Financial pressure or June 30 in Australia or May 30, I think 31 in
New Zealand.
March 31.
March.
So you start thinking about those things. Like, I don't get it. Now, it's not that we don't go to a downsizer, but if we're going to a downsizer,
You treat them in a different way.
So let me ask you a question. If I go to a downsizer, you would have a PDF, right, of questions to ask downsizers.
Yes.
You'd have a downsizer's guide, wouldn't you?
Correct, yes.
You could show me.
Why are you looking at me?
I just want to see yours.
Do I have one?
Yeah.
No, I thought we were talking conceptually. Come on, mate. No, I get what you're saying. No, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, you would have problem type, match that with a series of
and
questions.
then take a one-page A4.
There you go.
So common questions to downsize. Ask, can I buy before I sell? Can I sell before I buy? Do both of you actually want to do the move? How will you transact the financial stuff? How does it impact on my pensions, as an example, for over 55s? How does it impact on the over 55 superannuation benefits? So like, I don't understand, why are we sending people out to these situations completely unskilled to have the conversations and not have a resource that makes it easier, faster, better, and for that consumer to go, oh, you get me, so it makes it easier for them to do it.
Because we haven't thought about the problem type that we're trying to solve.
Because it's not in the CRM, or because we don't fill it out on the form?
Because we don't have a process.
Sounds broken.
This is a good episode.
Sorry, mate.
Yeah, it's true though.
A bit aggressive today.
I know. What happened? How many coffees have you had?
0.
Well, have you? I know what happened today.
Yes.
I know. You haven't spoken to anyone today. You haven't worked today, or you haven't had an event.
Come on, mate. So the next one after that is that then I'm going to say that literally one of the core foundations of any great business leader is to manage risk.
Yes,
okay,
correct. I agree.
3 areas of risk inside of a sales business.
Yes.
Number 1, do we actually have buyers to buy?
Yes.
Number 2, do we have sellers who are going to sell?
Yes.
And number 3, are our current listings moving to being more saleable?
Correct.
Okay, so Mondays, we're just going to go through our best buyers.
Yes.
People that have made an offer, need to buy by a certain timeline, sold last weekend, have urgency, job relocation, you get the idea. Tuesdays, we're going to read over all of our seller pipeline, including every market appraisal based on problem type.
Yep.
And work out how that's going to work. And if we've got lots of buyer demand in a certain price range, then we're going to prospect against our sellers who might own a property of a similar type, or past clients or past market appraisals and or landlords where they live.
Yep.
And then on Wednesdays, we're just going to review current listings and work out what to do to move them from red light to green light.
Yes. Correct.
Sounds like a good system.
You're staring at me.
I just want to know.
I don't know. Am I in trouble?
Do you feel that most agents would have that?
No, they don't. So most agents, look, Mondays and Fridays and Saturdays are really predictable.
Yes.
Mondays I call back buyers.
Yeah.
You know, amongst other things, I call back, pipeline sellers and all that type of stuff. Fridays I'm calling sellers and buyers for Saturday. Saturday I'm doing opens and auctions. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays where all the magic happens, right? Because they don't have a plan or a process around that, or their current system, as you put it very nicely, is broken. So yes, I totally agree with that.
Great restaurants.
Yep.
First thing they do before they open.
They're all meeting together.
All right. So daily directions.
Daily directions.
What have we got on today? What's on the menu?
What are the specials?
You get the idea.
What did we learn about service last night? Blah, blah, blah.
So why don't we do that in a sales business?
Because we're lazy. No, I'm serious, mate. I'm serious because we use daily directions.
Sure.
Because you're our coach for our business.
Yes.
And so the reason why we don't do things is because... So how many ways of listing a property are there? How many ways or methods of selling a property are there?
Yeah.
There are limited methods.
For professionals.
Yes, for professionals.
Yeah.
However, what we find is that if we've got 90 in our sales team, there's 90 different ways of listing. There's 90 different ways of negotiating. There's 90 different ways of selling, which is fine because you want to have people to have that personality when it comes to it. However, when you look at the mechanics of what we must do, the guy that's closing the airline door at the airport, he doesn't have his own little system.
Sure.
There is a system.
Sure.
Right? Because it guarantees an outcome.
But for your top performing agents, and this is the thing about, being able to take someone brand new and get them to that as quickly as possible.
Yes.
Wouldn't you meet every morning and go, hey, Con, what's new to market in the last...
Mate, we've got the agenda. It's pretty simple. Just go to Josh Phegan Blueprint and pull up the agenda and off you go. Daily directions.
So
what's listed, what's sold,
what's at a price reduction now?
What's at a price, what's been withdrawn.
Yes. And then what have we got on today?
Correct.
What do we need to be prepared for?
You got it. We're using it.
So this is the basic idea. Smartening up your business is about fixing broken systems.
Completely agree. 100% completely agree.
Experiences that rapidly shaped you.
So, Con, like you might have seen See Something, Say Something. And when you travel, you might have seen this up in like some of the airports and something. And was it really related to like a backpack or something like that? It's if you see a vacant backpack, say something.
Yeah,
right?
no, I'm running.
Okay, you left the backpack.
Yeah.
Now, the interesting thing is, so I checked in And I was up in Sheffield, if you've ever been there.
No.
It's like the home of, I think they make some of the Boeing engines there, and some of the Rolls-Royce stuff is based out of there. So it's a real like production centre of the UK.
Right.
And anyway, my client is a really lovely guy, Mark Ross, and he said, hey, look, what we're going to do is that we're going to give you accommodation. We're going to come up here to do the work, and we'd recommend that you stay at the Hilton. So we booked into the Hilton, and I find the Hilton's got really big variations about that, like new versus very old school Hiltons.
Yeah.
Anyway, this was an old school Hilton. So anyway, I went in there, and like literally as I was going through and I checked in, everything was fine. And look, it was okay. It wasn't amazing, but it wasn't bad either. And anyway, there was a sign in the lift and it said, see something, say something. So if you see something that we could improve on, then say something about that. So anyway, I go to the checkout, and I'm not one to complain, right? So okay, great. I go on to checkout, and it sprung into my mind about the see something, say something. And so the guy was there, he goes, oh, okay, great. Thanks very much for staying at the Hilton. I said, oh, by the way, he goes, yeah. I said, see something, say something. He looks at me weirdly, and I said, oh, man, I just wanted to let you know, the iron in my room was really bad.
You said that?
Yeah. Like one of those irons where
yes.
like the liquid comes out of it, dirties your own white shirt, and it's got like some brown stains on it. I was like, man, the iron was really bad. He's like, oh, all right. And then I looked at him and he looked at me and I said, so what do you do now that I've given you that? He goes, mate, you're the first person who's ever said, see something, say something. I don't know what we do now that we've got that feedback. And so there's a massive disconnect. And there again, that's a really good idea on broken systems between really good ideas that someone's actually had, but then people don't know what to do when frontline staff are actually then having to put that in play and give that feedback. And and you think about that, whether or not it's how do we improve the service or how do I now give a referral? Well, you got to have a system, you got to have a place where people can actually go and get access to that and go and do something with it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Something that's changing your view.
This is the story of the Flamingo Room. Right, so I'm very lucky I get to do work with an incredible brand called House & House over in Dubai. And we have an amazing agent in that business called Talia Bessa. And Talia is from Australia. And so she's over there and she's doing amazing things. And her and her partner Barry were very kind, and they knew that I was in town. And they rang up and they said, hey, look, we're going to a birthday of this particular restaurant. Would you like to come? And I was like, oh, yeah, okay. And of course, Con, it's very hot over there. So as an Australian, I'm in like shorts and a T-shirt. I don't think about dress codes. I know that sounds funny. I'm not well dressed, but I'm not super well dressed either, right? Pretty relaxed.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I turn up to this thing, and like this thing is like amazing. We've got like lots of people there for the the celebration of the 4th birthday of the restaurant. Anyway, we walk in and we're given the the champagnes or the sparkling waters, and so I take the sparkling water, and the music's playing and the live bongo drums are going and everything's going pretty well. Anyway, this lady walks up to me and she goes, oh, okay, can I talk to you for just a moment? I said, oh, yes. She goes, look, I just need to let you know that tonight you actually have to be wearing pants.
Oh, right.
And I was like, oh, I didn't know.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay, look, it's actually our problem. It's not yours. Let me come back to you in just a minute. I said, okay. And she then comes back and she brings me this bag. And she goes, oh, there's a set of pants for you. Just pop those on and everything will be fine. I said, oh, okay, great. So anyway, I go into the change room and I pop the pants on, and they're amazing, like really good pants.
Yeah, right.
Right size, everything's good.
Wow.
Like amazing. Like she's sized up the waist. She's got it perfect. And I go, have a great night. Anyway, at the end of the night, change out of the pants back into the shorts, go to give them to her. She said, oh no, they're yours on behalf of us. Thanks so much for coming to us. So here is the interesting thing. Not only is that a phenomenal story and a great service experience, every time I go to Dubai, I go to the Flamingo Room.
Yeah, I could imagine.
And so this is the difference of what you've got to realise, is that exceptional service leads to amazing customer loyalty.
Yep.